Oh, damn it!
So unless you've been living under a rock, Jujutsu Kaisen was easily one of the best animes airing in 2023. And that's really not an easy task by any means. In a year where shows like Vinland Saga, The Sleeper Hit, Frieren, Mushoku Tensei, and many other animes were airing, Jujutsu Kaisen stood at the top of the totem pole as one of the most beloved and talked about shows this year. And the show wasn't just well received, JJK hit a new level of popularity this year that we haven't seen from many new gens. And a big reason for this is the second half of season 2, better known as the Shibuya incident arc. An arc that easily separated this series from its peers in many ways. Now I loved this arc, and in a lot of ways it fixed many of the doubts that I had about Jujutsu Kaisen from season 1. Because while I liked season 1, to me it always felt like something was missing to separate it from other shonens of the past. And it was only until I actually sat down and read the manga after season 1 that this series went from another potentially great shonen to my favorite and potentially one of the best anime/mangas of all time. So I want to take a look back into why I think the Shibuya incident arc is so special, why it's so important for the story, and why I think it's the arc that really put Jujutsu Kaisen on the map. But before we get into that, I want to address the elephant in the room, because obviously season 2 of JJK contained 2 arcs, with the first 5 episodes adapting the Hidden Inventory arc. And look, I really enjoyed the Hidden Inventory arc way more than I thought I was going to. It actually made me pick up the manga and go reread over those chapters again. And when you really analyze the arc and the moments in it, it really told an emotional and engaging story. But the big problem with this arc is, it's just so short to really care. Now I will be fair and say that Geito's downward spiral into darkness was one of the most interesting aspects of this arc, and Gojo vs Toji 1 and 2 were some of the more memorable fights in season 2. But all in all, this arc was only 5 episodes long, and a lot of the elements in it just felt rushed and pointless. I did enjoy seeing a teen Gojo attending Jujutsu High and seeing how he became the strongest sorcerer of his era, but the amount of time we actually see him engaging and interacting in the school life was only like 3 minutes out of the 5 episodes. And speaking of 3 minutes, it seemed like Shoko had less screen time than that, which was so confusing on why it made it seem like she was actually going to be a part of the story in the opening. And then with the whole Star Plasma Vessel mission, the way they were trying to set it up with the dialogue and music, they were trying to make Amanai's death emotional, but at this point in time, we had only spent around 2 episodes with her. So I didn't really care when Toji pulled up with the blicky. But like I said before, Geito's descent into madness was one of the most enjoyable aspects of this arc. You could really tell after the loss to Toji, the death of Amanai, and the death of Habara that he was heading to a place of no return. And also his conversation with Yuki didn't do any favors. But what I found the most interesting about Geito in this arc is how he never actually changed. When he's introduced in JJK 0, it's clear that he hates all non-sorcerers, and it's very clear that he views non-sorcerers as the enemies.
Filthy monkey who can't even use jujutsu. I don't want everyone to breathe in the monkey smell. There are money-collecting monkeys and curse-collecting monkeys. Nothing but monkeys. No matter what anyone tells you, I hate those monkeys.
So when he's introduced in the Hidden Inventory arc expressing that it's his duty to protect the weak, aka non-sorcerers, it feels like his character did a complete 180, until you actually dive deeper into the arc and realize who Suguru views as the weak has changed over time. In his first real mission, he sees what non-sorcerers are capable of. From the death of Amanai to Toji beating the brakes off him to Toji allegedly killing his best friend. And all this leads to the climax of his character turn, when he sees that non-sorcerer villagers have locked 2 little girls in a cage because they believe that they are the cause of cursed spirits. Watching the scene where Geito took out 112 villagers, burning them alive, and seemingly having stress leaving his conscience was something to see. And it was very interesting to see that from his perspective, the people that he viewed as needing protection and being the weak swapped right in front of us. And it was also really interesting to see the relationship between Geito and Gojo, because I'm not gonna lie to you, when I first watched this scene in JJK 0, it did not hit as hard as it was supposed to. But when you actually dive into their backstory and you're able to see that Gojo and Geito were a pair. When we're first introduced to Gojo, he's known as the strongest, but back then they were the strongest, the 2 of them together. And because the 2 of them were the strongest, they were the only 2 who ever really understood each other, often believing that they could accomplish anything as long as the 2 of them were together. So when Gojo gets the news that Geito's gone rogue, there's an execution order on his head, and you can just see the shock and confusion on his face. It leads to some very emotional scenes. And I know the argument outside of KFC has been memed so many times, but we did get one iconic line out of it. But even with the stuff that I like from the hidden inventory arc, as a whole, the arc just kind of feels like a filler episode. And when you find out that Gege Akutami created JJK0 before he ever started working on the main series, a lot of moments in this arc feel like Gege's just trying to plug in holes for things that he's already introduced and things that he's trying to introduce later down the line. And I know some people really like this arc, but I feel like if it was never created, nobody would really be devastated about it. And overall, I just feel like it wouldn't hurt the quality of the story drastically. But if I had to rate the hidden inventory arc, I would say it's a solid 6 out of 10. Good, but nothing amazing. You are special. Alright, but now it's time to talk about the real star of this season. The Shibuya incident arc was peak from start to finish. Watching this arc weekly was literally one of the best experiences of the year. And to me, it improved many aspects of season 1 that I had doubts about, with one of them being Yuji's character. Now, as much as I liked season 1, one of my biggest critiques was that Yuji as a character felt very flat. And I know I'm not the only one who felt this way, because for years many JJK fans have been saying that Yuji doesn't feel like the main character of his series. Like, yes, he's a big part of it and he gets a lot of screen time, but there's many times throughout Jujutsu Kaisen where Yuji just doesn't feel like the main character and feels more like a supporting role. And this narrative only amplified after the release of the JJK0 movie and the introduction of Yuta Okkotsu, a goated character to say the least, but also one that many Jujutsu Kaisen fans went on to say should be the main character of the story. And you know, that narrative has just always been hilarious to me when you think about the fact that JJK0 was the first part of Jujutsu Kaisen that Gege Akutami ever created, and Yuta Okkotsu was one of the first 2 characters that Gege Akutami ever wrote. But when it came to season 1 Yuji, many people viewed him as just a watered down version of main characters from the big 3. But that was a completely different case this season, as we got to witness Yuji go through some crazy character development, because man, did this man go through it this season. Since the beginning of the series, Yuji has been trying to follow his grandfather's last words of trying to save as many people as possible. But over the course of this season, we see that Yuji's character has to endure time and time again as he learns that this isn't as easy as it sounded. Yuji's constantly being broken down only to pick himself back up and be broken down 3 times over. He's constantly faced with moral dilemmas. He's constantly questioning his sins and if he's a good person or not. Does he even deserve to live? He's having mental breakdown after another mental breakdown, one hardship after another. And at many points throughout this season, I started to feel bad for him, as you could visually see the weight of his sins crushing him down, killing his spirit. But one of the most important aspects of Yuji's character from this season is his resilience. Because yes, he's been broken down time and time again, but the important part is he never stays broken. Yuji has to accept and learn that everything doesn't have a meaning. Every terrible thing that happens in life can't be rationalized, and the only thing that he can control is what he does and how he moves forward. And by the end of the season, we've seen him change so many times that he almost feels like a different character, as he's finally come to terms of what it means to be a Jujutsu sorcerer to him. Another aspect that I really feel like elevated this season was that the risk of danger was so much higher than the previous season. I can't name how many times that I've watched an anime, a TV show, or a movie and there's a big battle going on, some type of war event, and it never feels like the stakes are actually high. And even though you're constantly being told that this is a high risk event, it never feels like the heroes are in any danger. It never feels like there will be any casualties or there's anything on the line to lose. And while this isn't always the case, I feel like in so many shonens, this is the typical formula for every show. And outside of a few small deaths from season 1, that's genuinely how I thought Jujutsu Kaisen was gonna be. But boy was I wrong. When I tell y'all, this arc had me going from thinking that things were gonna be predictable to being on the edge of my seat every episode. I was genuinely scared for every main character because it felt like at any moment someone could get knocked off. And even though the reaction that I saw online to these deaths was a mixed one, I truly believe that this was something that put Jujutsu Kaisen in a different lane from other shonens, because it is so rare that you ever see a shonen kill off main cast members within 2 seasons. But not only did killing off these characters in the way they did add intrigue to the story, but it also amplified the villains of this series and made them feel like legitimate threats. Because I watched so many animes throughout the years, and I can name you so many series where a majority of the villains feel like actual jokes. One Piece. But on a more serious note, there are so many shows where the villains don't feel dangerous, they don't feel like they could actually accomplish their goals, and they just feel borderline incompetent. But when I tell y'all this season that the disaster curses and Kenjaku were cooking, they were cooking. Because there were so many times throughout the season where the mood took a dark turn and it felt like at any point in time the villains could actually win. Mahito might just go on my list of biggest menaces in all of anime. His character being a twisted mirror of Itadori was one of the best aspects of this season, and without him wreaking havoc and challenging Itadori's philosophy, we wouldn't have seen this crazy character growth from our main character this season. And then there's Sukuna, who was truly one of the biggest stars this season, because from the time he showed up to the time he left, he was just wreaking havoc, and every time he was on screen it truly felt like he could have took out any character in the main cast. And his character is truly becoming one of my favorites in the series. What I think I like so much about Sukuna's character, especially this season, is how he breaks the inner demon trope in anime. A trope that became very popular from Naruto. Many animes have this trope where the main character has a demon inside them. The demon starts off evil and makes the main character's life hard, but eventually the main character is able to make the demon see the error of their ways, and eventually they're able to persuade the demon to come to the good side. And look, while this trope isn't terrible, I feel like it can be done good in a lot of situations. It's just been so played out throughout the years. And even though Sukuna was evil in season 1, I still had some type of suspicion that he might be persuaded to come to the good side. Boy, was I wrong. This season truly showed that Sukuna is just the definition of being evil just to be evil. Bro is truly Black Force energy, and I love that about his character. Having villains that don't really have motives outside of I do what I want cause I can, and villains that can't be persuaded by simple talk no jutsu makes Jujutsu Kaisen unpredictable. And it's that unpredictability that makes the show refreshing. And it's ultimately one of the biggest reasons why I think so many people have flocked to this series. Because when shows don't take risks, when there's no sense of danger, when you know everybody's going to be fine by the end of the arc, over time the story can become very repetitive, and it can lead to many people dropping the series. My hero. But another aspect that I feel like played a major role in putting Jujutsu Kaisen on the map this year was the fights. There were so many incredible fights this season, it's actually crazy to think about them all. Usually a show has 1 or 2 amazing fights a season, but once you hit the last 2 episodes of the Shibuya incident arc, there was a top tier fight every episode, and sometimes an episode would have 2 amazing fights. Choso vs Yuji was truly one of the best examples of hand-to-hand combat in anime that I've seen in the last couple years. The bathroom scene where they were just throwing hands was just peak, from the fight choreography to the animation. And I don't know why, but watching this fight really reminded me of Kakashi vs Obito, another fight that is widely regarded as one of the best hand-to-hand combat showings in anime. Then we had fights like Toji vs Dagon and Jogo vs Sukuna, which really showed that Studio Mappa is going crazy in the animation department, because a lot of these fights were shorter and a lot less eventful in the manga compared to the masterpieces that Mappa were putting on every episode. Fights like Choso vs Kenjaku, Todo and Yuji vs Mahito, and of course the unbelievable spectacle that was Sukuna vs Maharaga just show that Mappa animators are at the pinnacle when it comes to animation. Now the environment that they're in to produce these animations is a whole nother video from another time, but you get the point. But overall, the Shibuya incident arc wasn't just another anime arc, or it wasn't just another season, it was an experience. There was constant discourse going on online, constant videos being made, and constant hype every week. Anime onlys were sitting on the edge of their seats as they were going through a constant roller coaster of emotions every episode. By the end of one episode, you felt like you were coming down from the biggest high as you just watched one of the most exciting episodes you've ever seen in your life. And by the end of the next episode, you were sitting there in despair trying to gather your thoughts and emotions as you just watched one of the most traumatizing things you could have ever witnessed. And manga readers like myself were sitting there in pure joy as we were being able to witness and watch something that we had hyped up so much exceed our expectations. Not just from a visual standpoint, but also from a storytelling one. Getting to see material that we've known and read and loved for so many years be adapted and executed so perfectly to elevate the story to the next level and transition it into the next phase. There were just so many iconic moments from this season, from the 120% potential scene with Yuji, Todo, and Mahito, to Toji's the one who left it all behind scene, to Gojo's awakening, and my personal favorite, the I am you scene where Yuji just walks down Mahito in a forest full of snow, symbolizing that he is no longer the prey, he is the hunter. Everything about this season was just amazing. Even if you check the IMDb, almost every episode is rated at a 9 or higher, and I really think that this is an arc that anime fans will be talking about for years to come. And when Jujutsu Kaisen finally comes to an end, and people look back on what made the the series so good. This will be the arc where people say JJK really took off and it put Jujutsu Kaisen on the map. But as always, I appreciate you checking out another video. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content, and hit the noti bell to be notified when I upload my next video. And also follow my socials where I talk about everything animation, from anime to YouTube animated projects. But until then, it's been your boy CornXV, and I'm off this.
Up in this tank, yeah, it's over. Turn on buzz mask up like coke. Pull up in Rovers, it's over. Bitch, I'm cheese sauce, this coke. Llama, it can't want no host. Bottle, it can't let me pour.